The community center was always a little noisy in the evenings. People came in and out, some for art classes, some for dance, some only to sit quietly because it felt warmer than their homes. In one corner, an old piano stood against the wall. Most people walked past it without paying attention, except one woman who always stopped to check if the keys were still working. She volunteered at the center after her day job, helping wherever she could. She didn't talk much, but she had a calm presence that made others feel comfortable. One afternoon, she noticed a boy sitting close to the piano. He wasn't touching it, just watching. He came often, always alone, always quiet. At first she thought he was just curious, but every day he sat in the same place, eyes fixed on the keys as if they were calling him. She didn't want to pressure him, so she simply said hello whenever she passed. He nodded, but never said much. Days went by like this, until one evening the hall was almost empty. Only a few lights were on, and most volunteers had already left. The woman stayed behind to put away supplies, and that was when she heard its soft, uneven notes coming from the piano. Not a song, just random sounds, like someone trying to understand how the keys worked. She walked quietly toward the piano and found the boy sitting there, his fingers shaking as he tried to repeat a simple melody he had heard earlier. He froze when he saw her, as if he had been caught doing something wrong. She smiled gently and told him she liked what he was trying to play. He didn't respond at first, but his eyes softened. She asked if he wanted help. There was a long pause, and then he gave the smallest nod. She sat beside him, not too close, making sure he didn't feel uncomfortable. She pressed one key and said, "This is the first sound. Everything begins from here." The boy watched her hands like he was studying something magical. She guided him through a simple pattern, a few notes that formed a tiny tune. He copied her movements surprisingly fast. She was quiet for a moment, surprised at how quickly he picked it up. That was how their secret lessons began. He didn't like attention, and she didn't ask too many questions. She understood that some kids had stories they weren't ready to share, so they met in the evenings when the hall became quiet. Sometimes they sat in silence, just letting the sound of the keys fill the space. Other times she explained things softly and slowly, and he listened more with his eyes than his ears. She soon realized he had a rare gift. He could remember sounds instantly. If she played a melody once, he could repeat most of it. When she explained rhythm, he tapped the right timing even before she finished. She knew talent when she saw it, but she didn't want to overwhelm him. She kept the lessons simple, letting him grow at his own pace, but every good moment has its challenges. After a week or two, the boy started arriving late. Some days he didn't come at all. She wondered if she had done something wrong. One night he came in with tired eyes, and she finally asked him if everything was okay. He hesitated, then quietly shared that his family didn't think learning music was useful. They struggled with money, and he had chores every evening. The only time he could come was when everyone at home had fallen asleep or was busy elsewhere. She understood immediately. Many people didn't see music as important, especially when survival felt more urgent. She didn't try to argue or convince him otherwise. She simply said, "Come whenever you can. Even a few minutes is enough." He looked relieved, and for the first time, she saw a small smile on his face. Over the next few weeks, their lessons became even more private. Sometimes they practiced with the lights dimmed, so the staff wouldn't wonder why they were still there. Sometimes he came only for 10 minutes, but she made every minute count. She didn't expect anything from him. She didn't demand he practice at home because she knew he couldn't. She just wanted to give him something that felt like hope. Then something unexpected happened. A well-known businessman, a quiet millionaire who often supported community projects, decided to host a small music event at the center. It wasn't a big concert, just an evening where people could share their talents. The idea was to inspire the younger generation and remind them that creativity still mattered. The staff was excited, and some of the regular students signed up quickly. The woman didn't think much about it at first, but when she looked at the boy during their next lesson, she felt he might be ready for something bigger. He wasn't perfect, but he had heart. And sometimes heart mattered more than perfection. She gently mentioned the event to him, telling him he could play something simple if he wanted. His reaction was immediate fear. He shook his head and backed away from the piano. She didn't push him. She could see he wasn't used to being seen, and standing on a stage felt impossible to him. Days passed, and the event got closer. Posters went up, the piano was tuned, and the hall was decorated. Every time she saw the preparations, she wished the boy could be part of it. Not for the applause, but to show him what he could do. On the evening before the event, they were alone again. The boy played a soft melody she had taught him, and for the first time, he didn't hesitate. His fingers moved with confidence, and there was something pure in the way he played, like he wasn't thinking of mistakes. Only of the sound. When he finished, she looked at him and said, "You know, you don't have to be perfect to share something beautiful." He looked down. Unsure, but she continued, "Tomorrow, people will clap for anyone who tries. And even if they don't understand your story, they will feel your music." He whispered that people might laugh. She shook her head. People laugh when they don't know the truth. But when they hear you, they'll know. He didn't answer. But she saw something change in his eyes, not confidence yet, but curiosity. A tiny thought that maybe he could do it. That night, as she locked the hall, she felt a mix of worry and hope. She couldn't force him. She could only guide him. The rest was up to him. The next day came faster than expected. The hall was filled with families, volunteers, and visitors. Children ran around excitedly while adults chatted. The millionaire arrived quietly, without making a scene. He preferred to observe rather than be the center of attention. The woman stood near the piano, watching people take their seats. She didn't know if the boy would show up. Her heart sank a little, but she kept a calm expression, and then she saw him standing near the door. Nervous, holding his hands tightly together, he walked slowly toward her. She didn't say anything, just smiled as if she had been expecting him the whole time. He asked if he could still play something. She nodded gently. "You're right on time." In that moment, she knew that no matter how the performance went, he had already done something brave. He had chosen to step forward. And sometimes that first step was the biggest victory of all. The hall was filled with soft chatter, the kind that made a person feel both excited and nervous at the same time. People found their seats, children whispered to each other, and the volunteers moved around trying to keep everything organized. The piano stood in the center of the stage, polished and ready, almost glowing under the warm lights. The woman stood beside the stage, pretending to look calm even though her heart was beating fast. She wasn't worried about the performances. She was worried about the boy who had quietly walked in just minutes before the event began. He stood near the back, his shoulders stiff, as if he wasn't sure whether he belonged there. She could tell he was scared, but she also saw something else: determination. The program started. A young girl played a cheerful tune on a flute. A boy from the art class sang a short song. A few adults shared small performances too. People clapped politely, enjoying the evening. The millionaire sat silently in the second row, his eyes scanning the stage with interest. He rarely smiled, but he wasn't unfriendly. He simply observed everything around him carefully. Then it was time for the piano slot. The woman glanced at the boy. He looked like he wanted to disappear. She walked over to him slowly so she wouldn't startle him. She spoke softly. "You don't have to rush. Just breathe. When you're ready, walk to the stage." He nodded, but his legs stayed frozen. The woman gently placed her hand on his shoulder, not to push him, but to let him know he wasn't alone. After a few seconds, he took a deep breath and stepped forward. As he walked toward the stage, the room grew quiet. People didn't recognize him. He wasn't one of the usual performers. Some wondered if he was lost or confused. But he walked straight to the piano and stood behind it, trying to calm the shaking in his hands. When he sat down, his feet barely touched the pedals. He looked smaller than ever under the lights. The audience waited, not sure what to expect. The woman watched from the side. She whispered to herself, "You can do this." The boy lifted his hands, but they hovered above the keys without touching them. His throat tightened. For a moment, he felt like running away. He thought of all the people staring at him. He thought of his family, who believed music had no future. He thought of the times he practiced alone in the dim light of the center, but then he remembered the woman's words from the night before. "You don't have to be perfect." You just have to be brave. He slowly touched the first key. A single note echoed through the hall. It was soft, almost fragile, but it was enough to steady him. He pressed another key, then another. The melody began to form, simple at first, like someone telling a quiet story. His hands trembled slightly, but he kept going. People leaned forward in their seats. The woman felt her eyes sting with emotion. She had heard him play this piece many times, but it had never sounded like this. Tonight the notes carried something deeper: fear, hope, and courage all mixed together. The boy's confidence grew with every second. His fingers moved more smoothly, gliding from one key to the next. The melody rose and fell gently, creating a feeling that wrapped around the entire room. Even the children stopped whispering. Even the volunteers paused their work. It was as if the whole hall was holding its breath. And then something unexpected happened. The millionaire, who had been sitting quietly until now, leaned forward. His eyes widened slightly, the first real sign of emotion anyone had seen from him all evening. He listened without moving, completely absorbed in the music. He had attended countless events, donated to dozens of programs, and heard many young performers. But something about this boy's playing was different. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. It was honest. When the boy reached the last few notes, the room felt completely still. He pressed the final key and let the sound fade gently into silence. He didn't look up immediately. He didn't know if he had done well or if people would laugh. He just kept his eyes on the keyboard, breathing heavily. Then the applause came. It started slowly, one pair of hands, then two. But in seconds, the entire hall was clapping, louder and louder. Some people even stood up. The boy blinked, confused, as if he wasn't sure they were clapping for him. The woman brought her hands together too, feeling a warmth in her chest. She wanted to call his name, tell him how proud she was, but she let the applause speak for her. The boy finally looked up. The shock on his face was clear. He had never been clapped for like this. He had never been seen like this. As he got off the stage, the millionaire rose from his seat. He didn't clap with the crowd this time. Instead, he waited quietly until the boy walked past him, then stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said gently. The boy froze, unsure how to react. He didn't know who the man was. He thought maybe he had done something wrong. The millionaire smiled softly, something he rarely did. "That was beautiful," he said. The boy lowered his eyes, unsure how to respond. "Who taught you?" The millionaire asked. The boy hesitated, then pointed toward the woman standing near the stage. She looked surprised as the millionaire turned and approached her. "You taught him?" he asked calmly. She shrugged lightly. "I just showed him a few things. He already had everything inside him." The millionaire looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Do you know what you've done?" She frowned slightly, unsure what he meant. "You didn't just teach him music," he continued. "You opened a door for him. A door he never knew he could walk through." She didn't say anything. She wasn't used to being praised. The millionaire then turned back to the boy. "Would you like to learn properly?" he asked. "With real lessons? A real instrument? A teacher who can help you grow?" The boy stared at him, confused. I don't have money," he whispered. The millionaire shook his head. "I didn't ask for money. I'm offering help. If you want it." The boy looked at the woman. She smiled softly and nodded, encouraging him without saying a word. After a long pause, the boy whispered, "Yes." The millionaire's face lit up with a quiet joy. "Good," he said. "We'll make arrangements starting tomorrow." Word spread quickly through the hall. People whispered to each other about the boy, the performance, the millionaire's offer. The applause from earlier still echoed in the air, but the boy didn't care about any of that. He only cared that someone believed in him. Someone beyond the woman who had secretly taught him all those evenings. The woman stepped aside, letting the boy talk to the millionaire. She didn't want attention. She simply watched from a small distance, feeling proud and emotional. She had spent months helping others at the center, and she never expected anything in return. But seeing the boy finally standing with confidence felt like the greatest reward she could ever receive. When the event ended and people began leaving, the boy walked back to her. He didn't speak at first. He just stood there, trying to find the right words. Finally, he said in a small voice, "Thank you." "For everything." She shook her head gently. "You did the hard part," she said. "You showed up. You were brave." He looked down, still overwhelmed. "Would you still teach me sometimes?" he asked quietly. She smiled warmly. "Whenever you want. I'll always be here." The millionaire waited patiently near the exit, giving them space. When the boy finally walked toward him, the woman watched with a soft smile. A new chapter of his life was beginning, one he never thought possible. One she never imagined she would be part of. As the hall lights dimmed and the last few people walked out, the woman stood there alone for a moment. She looked at the piano, remembering all the evenings they had spent practicing quietly. She touched one key gently, letting a single note ring in the empty room. Then she whispered to herself, "Sometimes a little kindness can change everything." And for the boy it truly had.